The sound of rainfall on aluminum bleachers, the echo of sneakers pounding the track, whistles, laughter, the usual chaos of a high school meet. But sometimes, normal doesn't stay normal. Sometimes the places we trust most become the settings for things we never thought possible. No one saw it coming. Not the athletes, not the parents, not even the ones who would be changed forever by it. In just a matter of seconds, something happened on that field that no one can fully explain. And by the time the lights dimmed and the field emptied, one life was gone, another was in handcuffs, and a town fractured. But this isn't just about a moment. This is about everything that led to it, everything we didn't see coming, and everything still left unanswered. Who were they? Before the cameras? Before the headlines? Before that night changed everything? This is not the story you think it is, and it doesn't end where most people stopped watching. What really happened on the field that night starts long before the whistle blew. Every town has a name that echoes louder than the rest. A student everyone knows, a player everyone watches, and for a while, that name was Austin Metcalf. Born just minutes apart, Austin and his twin brother, Aiden, were rarely seen without each other. From their first steps to their first touchdowns, everything they did side by side. Teachers would say they were like two sides of the same coin. Where Austin had the fire, Aiden brought the calm. But both carried the kind of presence that filled a room without ever needing to speak loud. By middle school, it was clear that Austin had something special. It wasn't just talent, it was drive. Coaches say he trained like he had something to prove. He studied plays late into the night. He showed up early to workouts, often dragging Aiden with him. And even off the field, Austin's energy followed him. Into classrooms, hallways, everywhere. He had that spark, one of his teachers shared. He wasn't just trying to pass the class, he was trying to lead the room. But what really set Austin apart wasn't just his performance, it was his presence. He was the kind of kid who picked up fallen books in the hallway, who texted his coach after practice to say thank you, who noticed when someone was having a bad day and didn't walk away. He was the first to check on you, said a teammate, whether you were hurt or just quiet. He saw that stuff. Home life for the Metcalf twins was steady. Their mother, Danielle, worked long hours at a healthcare center. Their father, Marcus, was a mechanic with a deep love for football and family. The Metcalf home was modest, but it was loud with laughter, music, and the sounds of boys constantly one-upping each other. Austin was the louder of the two, always pulling pranks, always pushing buttons. Aiden? He just smiled and rolled with it. To their neighbors, they were the kind of family people waved to on their way to work. To their coaches, they were future champions. And to their classmates, Austin was a star in the making. By junior year, college recruiters had started circling. Local papers ran his name. Austin had stats, heart, and leadership, but more than anything, he had momentum. He wasn't just our best player, said the head coach. He was the reason we believed we could win. And yet, for all the light Austin carried, there were shadows too. Quiet tensions, subtle rifts, things most adults might write off as teen stuff. But under the surface, something else was forming. No one knew what was coming, least of all Austin, because when you're young and things are going well, you believe they always will. In the weeks leading up to the event that changed everything, Austin was just doing what he always did. Training, studying, laughing with friends, planning his senior year. The future felt real until the future stopped. What happened next wasn't supposed to happen at all, and the story we've come to tell starts with the boy who had everything ahead of him. Behind every athlete is a village. Behind every headline, a home. And before we can understand what was lost, we have to understand where it all began. For Austin Metcalf, that beginning was Marcus and Danielle, his parents, not celebrities, not politicians, just people who worked hard, loved harder, and showed up every single day. Marcus Metcalf was the kind of dad who believed in the value of grit. A longtime mechanic at a local auto shop, he built his life with his hands. Calloused palms, grease-streaked jeans, but always home in time for dinner or kickoff. He wasn't loud about his love. He showed it through rides to practice, sideline claps, and grilled burgers on Friday nights. He believed in finishing what you started. He believed in showing up, even tired. And he believed in his boys. Danielle Metcalf worked in healthcare, often on call, always in motion. She brought structure to the household, making sure the twins were on time, well-fed, and always respectful. Friends say she had a calming presence, her voice could soften any conflict, and her expectations? Clear, school first, respect always, no exceptions. Together, Marcus and Danielle built their family on rhythm: early mornings, team breakfasts, school drop-offs, study hours, practice, dinner, homework, lights out. They didn't try to be perfect, but they were present, and in a world where so many kids go without that, it mattered. The twins were raised to be brothers first, competitors second. When one won, they both won. When one fell, the other picked him up. That was the rule, no exceptions. And for years it worked. The Metcalfs were known for their unity: church on Sundays, community cleanups, volunteering at the Booster Club barbecue. They didn't just raise good athletes, they raised good people. They were a close-knit bunch, a neighbor said, like clockwork. Everything they did as a family. But even the strongest homes can't protect against everything, especially what you can't see coming. The news, when it came, wasn't just a wave. It was an undertow, sudden, violent, and almost impossible to stand against. One moment, Danielle was checking Austin's class schedule. The next, she was answering questions from investigators. One moment, Marcus was planning college visits. The next, he was identifying his son's belongings. The days that followed were a blur of shock, sorrow, and silence. But through it all, the Metcalfs chose dignity. They didn't lash out. They didn't ignite a media storm. Instead, they spoke only when needed, and with careful grace. In their first and only public statement, they didn't point fingers. They didn't assign blame. They spoke of Austin's smile, his drive, his love for others, and they asked for something rare: not justice, not revenge, but space to breathe, to remember, to grieve. Because when you've lost a child, no outcome brings peace, and no punishment restores what was taken. All they wanted, said a close family friend, was to make sure people saw the whole of who Austin was, not just how his story ended. In the months that followed, the Metcalf home grew quieter, but the love never left. His jerseys still hang in the hallway, his cleats still rest near the door, and when the porch light flickers on each evening, it's not just for security, it's for memory. What the Metcalfs lost, no one can measure, but what they gave Austin and what they still give to the people around them is something far harder to destroy. Rooted in resilience, bound by love, this is the family behind the name, and they still show up every single day. Every story has more than one name, and every tragedy has more than one perspective. You've heard about Austin, his light, his promise. Now, we have to talk about the other teen, the one who was there that day, the one who walked away, Carmelo Anthony. Not the athlete, not a headline, a 17-year-old boy, same town, same track, different direction. Carmelo was born in the early spring of 2006, just 3 weeks after Austin. Their lives ran parallel from the start. Same district, same birthday parties, same sports teams once upon a time. But while Austin was seen as a leader, Carmelo was more of a shadow. Quiet, reserved, hard to read. He grew up in a modest 2-bedroom apartment just outside city limits, raised by his grandmother, Maria, after his mother relocated for work. His father was never in the picture, but Maria did what she could. She cooked every night, attended school plays, and insisted, despite her limited means, that Carmelo could still achieve something great. At school, Carmelo wasn't popular, but he wasn't a loner either. He floated, moved between friend groups, never quite fitting in, never fully out. He was just kind of there, one student recalled. Not loud, not mean, just quiet. Didn't talk much unless you spoke to him first. He liked music. He liked running. He was always sketching something in the back of his notebook. Characters, shoes, names he thought sounded cool. His teachers described him as mildly engaged, polite but distant. There were no suspensions on his record, no official behavioral flags, but there were whispers, missed homework, sudden absences, a few heated exchanges in the hallway. Still, nothing that crossed the line, nothing that gave anyone pause, until later. His grandmother told school staff more than once, "He's a good kid, just has a lot on his mind." And maybe that was true, because what few knew was that Carmelo was also trying to hold down a part-time job to help with bills, stocking shelves at a convenience store, walking home after midnight more times than anyone realized. At home, he wasn't violent. At school, he wasn't feared. But behind the scene, pressure was building. He began missing track practice, arguments with teammates, a shift in his tone, sharper, more defensive. Something was changing, something invisible but steady. And then came the moment no one could reverse. A confrontation, a fatal outcome, and a town left asking, why? In the days that followed, speculation erupted. Social media lit up with assumptions, accusations, theories. But the facts? Those were slower to come. Carmelo turned himself in the next morning, accompanied by his grandmother. His face was unreadable, not defiant, not weeping, just blank. In the statement provided by his public defender, Carmelo claimed self-defense. He said he felt threatened, that something happened in the moments before everything unraveled, and that he never meant for it to go that far. To this day, the full truth is debated. Did Carmelo feel cornered? Was there an argument beforehand? Was this months in the making or seconds in motion? There are no answers here meant to exonerate, but there is context, there is nuance, and if we don't listen for it, we risk misunderstanding everything. Because behind every mugshot is a history, and behind every decision is a dozen untold ones. Carmelo Anthony is not a villain in a movie. He's not a symbol of rage. He's a 17-year-old who made a decision that can never be undone. Whether it was fear, impulse, misunderstanding, or something darker, what happened that day didn't come from nowhere. It came from pressure, from pain, and from a moment no one can take back. Every tragedy has layers, some visible, some hidden behind front doors and quiet conversations. Before the headlines, before the incident, there was a home, a neighborhood, and a family trying, in their own way, to make things work. Carmelo Anthony was raised in a 2-bedroom unit in the outskirts of Frisco, Texas, a city known for its polished suburbs and booming school districts. But not all homes feel the same, even on the same street. Carmelo's primary guardian was his maternal grandmother, Maria Anthony, a retired nurse in her late 60s. Her days began early, with prayer, a coffee pot, and a stack of pharmacy pillboxes. Her evenings ended later than most, a light in the living room almost always left on. Maria stepped into the parenting role when Carmelo was just 6 years old. His mother, Felicia Anthony, moved to San Antonio shortly after his elementary years, chasing steadier employment in healthcare support. His father's identity was never publicly confirmed, and his involvement was reportedly non-existent. Maria never liked to speak about the past, but she showed up at every parent-teacher conference, every late bus pickup, every school fundraiser, and she made sure Carmelo never felt forgotten. Maria was the kind of guardian who brought snacks for the whole class, one elementary school teacher remembered. She wasn't wealthy, but she was present. Carmelo grew up with structure, but also solitude. His friends say he often stayed inside, gaming, drawing, listening to music. He wasn't rude, but he wasn't outgoing. At school, teachers say Carmelo showed signs of being emotionally reserved. He didn't disrupt, but he also didn't participate much beyond the basics. His coaches saw flashes of effort, but not consistency. He missed practices, sometimes without warning. There were no known disciplinary reports, but behind closed doors, counselors had concerns. One school document, later released through a local records request, noted a persistent emotional flatness and trouble expressing distress. Another mentioned a tendency to shut down when under social pressure. Still, there was no formal diagnosis, no flagged risk, just quiet notes in a folder. Friends from middle school recall a different side. A kid who cracked jokes at lunch, who helped carry project supplies, who once got a detention for talking during roll call, but then apologized before class was even over. He wasn't dangerous, just off in his own world sometimes, said one classmate. In high school, things became more complicated. The transition to larger classrooms and more social dynamics took a toll. Carmelo stopped joining after-school events. His grades dropped in the fall semester, and his name began to disappear from the track meet rosters. Rumors began to circle, quiet ones, that Carmelo had gotten into a shouting match with a teammate, that he'd been seen alone behind the school crying, that he was acting strange lately. But none of those rumors were ever confirmed, and none of them led to formal action. In the absence of records, there was only speculation, and speculation is not truth. His grandmother, in a rare local news interview, held her composure with quiet strength. "My grandson is not a monster," she said. "He's a boy who made a mistake, but he wasn't born for this." Whatever stressors lived inside their home, financial, emotional, or otherwise, they never spilled into public view. Maria kept her yard clean, her porch light steady, her grandson close. But sometimes, even the strongest families can't see what's bubbling beneath the surface. Or worse, can see it, but feel powerless to change it. In many ways, the Anthony family story isn't one of violence. It's one of silence, of missed moments, and questions that still linger in the walls of a modest home in Frisco. It didn't start with violence. It started with competition, with sweat on turf, cleats on tracks, and high school pride stitched into every jersey. Frisco isn't a small town, but within its high school circuit, everyone eventually sees everyone. Football teams rotate fields. Track athletes cross paths at invitational meets. Coaches shake hands before kickoff. Rivals nod at one another before sprints. Austin Metcalf and Carmelo Anthony didn't attend the same school, but they were part of the same athletic ecosystem. Frisco United and Frisco South, two powerhouse schools with enough school spirit to power entire pep rallies. Austin wore the uniform of a star in the making, a running back with acceleration and discipline. Carmelo, less known in the standings, showed up for track, not because he wanted glory, but because he needed structure. And for a brief stretch, just a few months, their paths overlapped. There's no public record of a friendship, no shared selfies, no posts or tags that suggested they were close. But there were witnesses, students who remembered interactions. At a spring track event, Austin was spotted waiting beside the starting line, while Carmelo paced a few lanes over. One eyewitness later told investigators, "They looked like they were sizing each other up, but nothing happened." Others remembered locker room banter, stories passed from teammate to teammate, jokes that may have gone too far. Maybe just harmless rivalry, maybe more. But the line between competition and conflict is often paper thin, especially when you're 17. Social circles in high school are fragile. You don't have to be enemies to end up clashing. All it takes is a shared friend, an overheard comment, a misunderstanding. One friend of Austin's, who asked not to be named, recalled a moment. He said the kid from South was acting weird at practice, like he was watching him. Austin didn't like it. Another student from Carmelo's side later said, Carmelo didn't talk about him, but he wasn't the type to start stuff. No disciplinary actions were ever filed. No teachers reported fights or disputes. But under the radar, tension seemed to be building. Whether it was real or just perceived remains uncertain. The culture of high school athletics is both empowering and pressure-packed. When teens are expected to perform, represent, compete, emotions don't always follow the rules. As spring turned to summer, both young men were entering transitional phases. Austin was eyeing recruitment letters. Carmelo was reportedly considering leaving the track team altogether. Neither one could have guessed what was coming, that the next time they saw each other, it wouldn't be on a field. It would be on a quiet road with no scoreboard and no crowd. Two paths, two lives, two families, and one moment that would change everything. Not because of what they did together, but because of what happened when their worlds collided. It began like any other competition day in Frisco. April 2nd, 2025, a Wednesday, Overcast skies, early spring humidity sitting thick over the town's athletic fields. Weather delays were announced early. Track events scheduled to begin by noon were pushed past 1:15 p.m. The wind picked up. Nothing severe, but enough to move the air. Parents sat in folding chairs, some waiting in cars with engines running. Austin Metcalf arrived with his team shortly before noon. Confident, composed, he'd been here before. As a team leader, he carried the unspoken responsibility of setting the tone. Carmelo Anthony arrived separately, just after 12:40 p.m. with Frisco South's relay squad. No one noticed the two of them at first. Not together, not in conflict. They were both absorbed in pre-race rituals. Headphones in, eyes focused. Coaches calling names from clipboards. The 4x400-meter relay was scheduled for 2:10 p.m. Austin wasn't running in that event. Carmelo was listed as a second-leg substitute. But by then, something was already shifting. One coach would later say, "There was this moment, not loud, not a fight, but I saw the body language. Two kids side by side, not speaking, just staring." Another assistant recounted, "We thought it was nerves, it's track. You get edgy." No one, not officials, not teammates, not teachers, heard raised voices. But a cluster of students near the water station noticed a brief exchange. One student said, "Austin stepped forward like he was asking something, then walked away fast." Another, "Carmelo didn't react. He just stood there. Then he looked around like he was waiting for something." At 2:19 p.m., the relay event was underway. Austin wasn't competing, but he was still at the edge of the track. Carmelo, who hadn't run, was seen circling the field perimeter. The two briefly crossed paths again by the West Tunnel Gate. No cameras, no audio. Just two silhouettes walking in opposite directions. Then came the escalation. Witnesses described sudden motion. One student dropped their phone. Another screamed. A teacher stationed near the bleachers radioed for assistance at 2:24 p.m. Frantic calls echoed through the parking lot. Coaches sprinted. Students were moved back. One trainer administered aid while authorities were dispatched. The track meet ended not with applause, but confusion. At 2:29 p.m., sirens arrived. The emergency call was logged as teen-involved incident, possible trauma. Austin Metcalf was transported to a nearby medical facility. Carmelo Anthony was detained near the concession stand. Police began immediate interviews with staff, coaches, and peers. The field was cleared by 3:05 p.m. Rumors spread fast. Phones buzzed in homes across Frisco. Parents showed up early for pickup. Some students were told not to return for practice, and within hours the district issued its first statement. The statement was brief. An incident occurred during today's meet. Emergency services responded swiftly. Further information will be provided by authorities. We ask the community to be patient and respectful as we support all students involved. But what exactly happened between Austin and Carmelo in that short window, between 2:15 and 2:24, remains a point of investigation, memory, and grief. Some say it was planned, others say it was spontaneous. The truth, like so many moments that change lives, unfolded in silence. April 2nd was supposed to be just another day on the calendar, but for two families and an entire town, it became the day everything broke. By nightfall on April 2nd, 2025, the headlines were already taking shape. But inside the walls of the Frisco Police Department, the narrative was still being written, one statement at a time. Carmelo Anthony, 17 years old, was brought into custody late that afternoon. No resistance was reported. According to officials, he remained quiet, compliant, and emotionally withdrawn. A parent was notified. A lawyer was called. And by 6:45 p.m., local news had confirmed a Frisco student is in custody following a fatal on-campus altercation. The charge was swift and severe, one count of homicide. But this was not the end of the conversation, only the legal beginning. Carmelo, being under 18, entered the judicial system differently than an adult. A special hearing was scheduled within 48 hours to determine pretrial custody conditions. The district attorney's office made a statement the following day. This case, while tragic in every sense, will be prosecuted with full attention to the legal rights of all parties involved. We do not intend to seek capital punishment in accordance with the precedent set for juvenile defendants in this state. The reference was to Roper v. Simmons, a 2005 Supreme Court ruling that prohibits the death penalty for crimes committed by individuals under 18. Texas law aligns with that standard. Instead, the focus would now shift to whether Carmelo would be tried as an adult or remain in the juvenile system. The bond hearing was held quietly on April 4th. No live cameras, no photos. Inside the courtroom, family members, attorneys, and 2 school district liaisons sat in silence. Carmelo's legal team argued for his release under supervision. The prosecution requested secure detainment, citing community impact and ongoing investigation. The judge listened carefully, then ruled, remand to juvenile facility. No bond granted at this time. As legal motions unfolded, something else began to stir beyond the courthouse. On sidewalks, in locker rooms, across timelines and comment threads, a community in mourning. A candlelight vigil was held at the school stadium on April 6th. Over 500 attendees stood in silence, many wearing Metcalf's jersey number. Coaches spoke softly. Teammates shared memories. A song played over the speakers, Austin's favorite from the locker room. His twin brother was in attendance, though he did not speak. Instead, a close friend read a note on his behalf. Austin was more than my brother. He was my second heartbeat, and I don't know what to do with only one. The school board issued a formal statement the following morning. We are devastated by this loss. Our students, staff, and families are hurting. Counseling services will remain available indefinitely. On social media, tributes poured in, videos of game highlights, photos from birthdays, study halls, team banquets, hashtags like Nosh Justice for Austin and Frisco Strong surged across timelines. But not every voice online was helpful. The police department urged calm. Speculation was discouraged. The district attorney reminded the public, one life has been lost, another stands accused, and neither deserves to be reduced to online commentary. By mid-April, a local nonprofit launched the Metcalf Memorial Fund, not just for funeral costs, but to establish an annual sportsmanship scholarship in Austin's name. The initiative gained support from businesses, educators, and even athletes from rival schools. 1 month later, the courtroom calendar would take center stage again, with more motions, more questions, and a community still trying to make sense of how 2 lives crossed, and only one could continue. The truth is often fragile, and in the age of instant access, it doesn't always get there first. In the days following the arrest, a new kind of chaos began, one without sirens or official statements. It started quietly. A photo cropped, a caption changed, a theory whispered into a comment thread, and then it spread, faster than verified facts ever could. Rumors began surfacing, some suggesting there was a feud no one had seen, others claiming messages had been deleted or evidence withheld. Anonymous accounts reposted them with urgency, giving the illusion of truth through repetition. By April 5th, the local police department released a formal statement. We are aware of misleading information circulating online. Please rely on official sources. This is an active investigation. But the warnings didn't slow the scroll. TikToks, tweets, live streams, each with a different version of events, none confirmed. One video, shared over 300,000 times, falsely alleged prior threats between the 2 students. Another claimed there was video footage of the incident, despite law enforcement stating no such video existed. A popular podcast episode hinted at deep-seated conflict, without naming any sources. The families, already living their worst nightmare, were now faced with another burden, fighting shadows cast by people they had never met. We ask for privacy, respect, and compassion. Please do not speculate. Please do not share unverified stories. This is not a movie. This was our son. The Anthony family, also under scrutiny, issued a parallel plea. There are 2 families grieving different kinds of loss. Let justice unfold properly. Please stop spreading stories that hurt. Behind the scenes, moderators worked overtime, flagging harmful content, removing posts, asking users to be mindful. But even responsible journalism struggled to compete with the volume of unverified emotion. In interviews, educators voiced concern. Not just about the case, but about what their students were absorbing. Misinformation, they warned, wasn't just dangerous. It was shaping grief. By mid-April, a local nonprofit launched a campaign, Pause Before You Post. It urged students and adults alike to think critically, protect the dignity of all involved, and avoid becoming accidental harm doers online. The campaign found support across the state, and slowly the tone online began to change. Not entirely, but enough to let the real story take the spotlight again. Because when tragedy strikes, the need to know everything is human, but the need to respect what's real, that's humane. In the halls of justice, movement can feel slow, especially when the world outside is already moving on. As of now, the case against Carmelo Anthony remains open and active. The district attorney's office has confirmed that formal charges have been filed, the specific count, one charge of homicide. At the initial hearing, the prosecution laid out the bare facts. No embellishment, no speculation. The defense team responded with a statement of its own. The incident was, quote, a tragic confrontation, not a planned act. That one word, confrontation, has become a legal dividing line. One side sees intent, the other sees a split-second reaction. Carmelo Anthony remains in custody. The court has determined that, given the nature of the charge, bail would not be appropriate at this time. His legal team has filed preliminary motions, one focusing on juvenile rights, another requesting access to school-based surveillance and coaching staff interviews. What the public often forgets, a court process is not a countdown to punishment. It's a journey to clarity, and every page, every statement, every pause matters. Neither family has returned to public forums since their early statements, but through attorneys and close friends, we've heard what continues to matter most to them: truth, dignity, and accountability. Austin's family continues to honor his legacy through community outreach and athletic scholarships being organized in his name. Carmelo's family, meanwhile, has remained quiet, choosing privacy while preparing for a lengthy and emotionally difficult legal road. And as of this recording, no trial date has been officially set. Discovery is still in progress. Witness lists are forming. The wheels of justice are turning, but carefully and in full view of a community still healing. What remains unknown are the exact seconds that turned a track meet into a tragedy. But what is known, without question, is this: two young lives were forever changed on that day, and everyone, from every side, deserves a process that respects the gravity of that truth. When tragedy erupts between two teenagers, the impulse is often to assign blame. But the harder question, the one that can actually make a difference, is this: how do we stop it from happening again? To explore that question, we turn to the voices of experience, professionals who've spent decades working with young people, and those who understand the fragile crossroads of adolescence. What we're seeing in many youth confrontations today isn't just about impulse. It's about identity, social status, emotion regulation, and often unresolved trauma, says Dr. Renee Garlon, a licensed psychologist who works with teens across school districts. The prefrontal cortex, the decision-making center in the brain, isn't fully developed in teens. That's why conflict resolution skills must be taught early and consistently. Sometimes it's one bad moment, but often it's a buildup. Bullying, exclusion, pressure to show strength, none of it happens in a vacuum. When juveniles commit serious offenses, the law walks a tightrope, explains attorney Malik Dorsey, who specializes in youth defense. The justice system has a dual mandate: accountability and rehabilitation. In cases like this one, the public often demands harsh punishment. But legally and constitutionally, the system must consider age, intent, and capacity for change. Even in cases with tragic outcomes, we don't treat minors the same as adults, not just because of precedent, but because of what science tells us about development. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed time and again, youth matters. That doesn't mean there's no consequence. It means the consequence must reflect the potential for growth. On the field, you see a lot more than wins and losses, says Coach Raymond Hart, a longtime Frisco track and football coach. You see kids carrying burdens. You see rivalry boiling over. What they need is emotional training, just as much as physical training. We talk to them about plays. We need to talk to them about peace. One of the boys involved here, he could have been any of ours. That's the part that breaks you, and it's also what drives you to keep showing up. If schools don't have dedicated spaces for peer mediation, they're missing the first line of defense, says Cynthia Morales, founder of Teens for Peace. We're not just teaching students how to avoid violence. We're teaching them how to exist together with empathy. It's not about being soft, it's about being skilled. Emotional skills, listening skills, de-escalation tools, that's what saves lives. This tragedy lit up a truth we've ignored for too long. Young people are navigating complex emotional terrain without the map they need. It's time to give them one. In the aftermath of loss, healing comes from more than courtroom verdicts. It comes from the questions we dare to ask, and the answers we're willing to build into something better. Long after the headlines fade, long after the courtrooms go silent, what remains is a name that echoed across fields, classrooms, and living rooms. A name that still lives in hearts, Austin Metcalf. In the town of Frisco, Austin's story didn't end that April afternoon. It began again, in the ways he's being remembered, honored, and carried forward. The Metcalf twins were once the heart of the track and football teams. Today, those teams warm up wearing Austin's number. They touch his initials etched at the edge of the track, and before every meet, they say his name. At halftime of the season opener, a framed jersey was presented to Austin's family. No speeches, just silence and standing ovation. A local scholarship now bears Austin's name. Each year, it will be awarded to a student who exemplifies leadership, compassion, and promise. 3 words that came up again and again from his teachers. A mural was commissioned by the senior class, not just of Austin, but of the values he embodied: perseverance, humility, brotherhood. Austin wasn't perfect, says one of his teammates, but he was real. And if you ever needed someone, he didn't even ask why. He just showed up. What hurts the most, a family friend reflects, isn't just losing him. It's all the years we'll never see. The man he could have become. We won't let his story end in tragedy, his father said during a vigil. We will carry his name forward in the way we live, love, and raise our sons. The goal isn't to forget. The goal is to remember, with purpose, the narrator says in closing. In every step we take to prevent youth violence, in every moment we choose peace over pride, we honor Austin. This documentary is more than a recounting. It's a remembrance and a reminder that even in heartbreak, there is still hope, and even in silence, some names never stop being spoken. If this video has found you, it's because something within you has already started escaping. You see the danger. You understand the warning signs. But what if we could do more than just watch? What if we could use this moment to save someone else? The truth is, no one can stay silent. Not now, not anymore. Every time you hit subscribe, you're not just staying informed. You're helping amplify a message that matters. You're helping us get one step closer to stopping these stories before they unfold, to recognizing the signs, to knowing what to do when danger strikes. We ask you, what's your story? Have you ever seen signs that others missed? Have you ever been in a situation where you wish you could have helped? We need to hear from you. Share your experience in the comments, but remember, we stand together in respectful dialogue. Healing only begins when we listen to each other. Subscribing helps push this message to more people, and in doing so, you could be saving a life. In a world full of noise, your action has power. Use it. And if you're moved, consider contributing to a verified memorial fund or scholarship in Austin's name. This isn't just about remembering, it's about ensuring his legacy shapes a better future for us all. They're watching who unsubscribes, but they're also watching those who care enough to make a difference. Stand with us. Let's be the change before it's too late.